Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and for the first time, members of the public, welcome to the 2011 State of the State Address. Please welcome the Lieutenant Governor of the State of New York, Robert J. Duffy.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, thank you. Thank you very much. On behalf of Governor Andrew Cuomo, welcome and thank all of you for being here today. The governor is presenting this year's State of the State Address in a new manner and also in a new location, because today is a new day for the future of the state of New York. In a few moments, Governor Cuomo is going to lay out a plan of action. It is very ambitious. It's also very attainable if we all join arms and work together. We have changed venues to allow New Yorkers from all over the state to attend. It is encouraging to see how many of you made the trip here today. And like Governor Cuomo and myself, you care about your government and the direction of our great state. Today is about you. It's about giving you access to your government, restoring your faith, and working together to solve our common problems, because everyone in this room is part of the solution. We have to remember, as your elected leaders, that we represent you. New Yorkers across the state are struggling to find a job, struggling to pay mortgage payments, struggling to put their kids through college in order to give them a better life. These are the everyday struggles New Yorkers are living with. It is so important that we never, ever forget the sacred trust you have put in all of us as elected officials. We work for you, the people of the state of New York, and I thank you so much for that honor. Now, to begin our event, I would like to acknowledge the elected officials and government officials who are here today. First, please join me in welcoming the esteemed jurists of the Court of Appeals, led by the Honorable Chief Judge Jonathan Lippman. Also joining us today, the Senate Democratic Conference leader, the Honorable John Sampson. Also here today, the Assembly Minority Leader, the Honorable Brian Kolb. I'd like to recognize the Assembly Majority Leader, the Honorable Ronald Canestrari. Majority Leader Canestrari, is the Assembly present?
Yes, Lieutenant Governor Duffy, the Assembly has met, organized, elected the Honorable Sheldon for Speaker of the Assembly. Members of the Assembly are present and ready to hear the Governor's message.
Thank you. Thank you, Majority Leader. I would like to now recognize the Senate Deputy Majority Leader, the Honorable Thomas Libous. Deputy Majority Leader Libous, is the Senate present?
Yes, Lieutenant Governor, the Senate also has been elected DP Skelos as its leader. Members are present, and we are ready to receive the Governor's address.
Thank you, sir. I would like to at this time acknowledge some elected officials. Former Comptroller Carl McCall. My former fellow mayors from the western part of the state, the city of Buffalo, Mayor Byron Brown. The city of Rochester, Mayor Tom Richards. The city of Syracuse, Mayor Stephanie Miner. And our host mayor, the mayor of the city of Albany, Jerry Jennings. It is my honor to welcome the mayor of New York City, Mayor Michael Bloomberg. And also please recognize the former mayor of New York City, Ed Koch. I now would like to introduce to you the Attorney General of the State of New York, the Honorable Eric Schneiderman. I'm also pleased to introduce the Comptroller of the State of New York, the Honorable Tom DiNapoli. I'd like to present to you the Speaker of the Assembly, the Honorable Sheldon Silver. Also, I'm honored to present to you the Senate Majority Leader and President Pro Tem, the Honorable Dean Skelos. It is my high honor and privilege to introduce to you my friend and the Governor of the State of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo. I ask you all to please rise again and welcome Rabbi Reuven Feinstein, who will deliver the opening prayer. Rabbi?
In this week's reading of the Bible, we are first told the names of the parents of Moses. Why didn't the Bible tell us who they were in last week's reading when the Bible relates the story of the birth of Moses? My father, Rabbi Moses Feinstein, answered that the Bible is teaching us not to take pride in birth, which is potential, only in accomplishments. Every session of this legislature has untold potential for excellence and leadership to produce outstanding legislation. The reward for leadership in a dictatorship is decided by the dictator. In a democracy, the reward for dedication to services is limited and not secure. Yet I see before me in both houses of the legislature and the executive branch gifted and dedicated altruistic individuals dedicated to the welfare of their fellow men, the citizens of this great state. Even though the most important issue before the legislature and governor is the deficit, we must remember that leadership obligates one to lead, to forge a path regardless of popular opinion, personal desire, and bias, using the highest of values and morals as a compass, in order to accomplish what is good and beneficial for the people whom one leads. Democracy is the process that elects our leaders to represent not only the public that elected and supported them, but also those who supported one's opponent, as well as those constituents who have not expressed an opinion. All of us in this great hall have directly benefited from the very freedom so hated by our enemies, the freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of religion, the freedom to pursue the American dream without hindrance or bias. We are a nation of immigrants, whether it be ourselves, our parents, our grandparents, or great-grandparents. We all owe a great debt beyond reparation to this most gracious nation for permitting us to live free in this magnificent state. This state has been the leader in enacting programs and entitlements designed to facilitate the ability of each citizen to achieve self-sufficiency with dignity. This state is the crossroads of the world, and as this state goes, so goes the United States. Our new governor, Andrew Cuomo, the son of Governor Mario Cuomo, a man respected by you all, a true mensch, has changed the protocol of the state message to include my good friend to speak of the Assembly, Sheldon Silver, and other legislative leaders. When tackling the great problems of the deficit and unemployment, may God give the wisdom to all to work together to accomplish returning the state to fiscal solvency without sacrificing the programs needed to give each individual the ability to reach their potential. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Please remain standing. I would now like to welcome Father Peter Young for our second prayer. Father Young.
O God, you have placed on our elected public servants the obligation of awesome responsibilities for their dedicated leadership, as mentioned by our Lieutenant Governor, the Sacred Trust. We pray that the state priorities will be thoughtfully considered by all of our citizens up and down state, as represented by our 62 county students on the stage today. In these economically stressful times, we call on God for guidance to bless our elected leaders to create the pride of being an Empire State citizen. Amen.
Please remain standing and join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Now I'd like to please welcome to the podium the Speaker of the Assembly, the Honorable Sheldon Silver.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Duffy, and please accept the best wishes of the New York State Assembly as you commence your work here in our state capital. Governor Cuomo, Lieutenant Governor Duffy, Senator Skelos, members of the legislature, Chief Judge Lippman, esteemed judges of the Court of Appeals, Comptroller DiNapoli, Attorney General Schneiderman, Rabbi Feinstein, Father Young, distinguished guests, citizens of the great state of New York. On behalf of the New York State Assembly, may I first wish everyone present here this afternoon and each and every New Yorker good health and good fortune throughout this new year. Let me also welcome you and welcome those who are watching and listening online or via broadcast to the annual State of the State Address. About 12 years ago, 1999, then Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Andrew Cuomo, stood before the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and after speaking to them about the need to revitalize the nation's cities, he closed by asking two simple but fundamentally important questions. Questions that many New Yorkers are asking their government leaders today. Can we make this place work together? My answer is yes. Do we have the intelligence? Do we have the intelligence, the strength, the compassion to see beyond our differences and come together? Plain, simply, unequivocally, yes, we can work together, we will work together. We must work hand in hand to resolve our immediate fiscal challenges and build the long-term financial stability of our state, to lighten the burdens that are affecting citizens and hard-working families across this great state of New York, and to deliver the better government that all New Yorkers deserve. As you know, like most states, we have a budget gap to close. Difficult choices must be made, but unquestionably, we must work together to reduce state spending. Just as clearly, we must strive to make our state a more affordable place in which to live, to work, to raise a family, and to own and operate a business. That means working together to cap property taxes. And we must work together to give New Yorkers government that is more transparent, more accountable, more efficient, and more effective. And we will do so by strengthening our ethics laws, reforming the redistricting process, consolidating government, and by expanding our oversight of the state's public authorities. Additionally, there are critically important issues that we will not allow to be overshadowed by our budgetary challenges. This year, laws that keep housing affordable for more than 1 million New Yorkers are set to expire. Let us work together to extend and to enhance the protection for these rent-controlled and rent-stabilized apartments so that New York's middle-class families will not find themselves priced out of their homes. Together, we must continue to safeguard our environment and to protect our precious water supply by ensuring, first and foremost, that hydraulic fracturing does not threaten the health of our citizens. When it comes to building a brighter future, there is simply no reason why our public colleges, universities, and community colleges cannot remain affordable and also become job-creating engines we need them to be. That said, we must continue our effort to spur the creation of jobs in every region of our state, and we must continue to build New York's innovation-based economy. Yes, these are difficult times, but New Yorkers have endured economic hardship before. So let us demonstrate the same resolve and the same spirit of duty that our predecessors embraced as together they lifted New Yorkers from fiscal crisis. In a few moments, our new chief executive, Governor Andrew Cuomo, will outline what I am confident will be a broad vision of the 21st century Empire State. In less than a month, the governor will articulate that vision through his executive budget, so that there is no doubt, I will say this one more time, the Assembly is ready and willing to work with the governor and with our colleagues in the Senate to fully address New York's economic challenges and to restore faith in our government. We have already established a record of achievement working in partnership with then Attorney General Andrew Cuomo during his highly successful tenure in that office. Together, we instituted groundbreaking measures to consolidate local governments, made possible dramatic reforms to protect student borrowers, and forced internet providers to be more vigilant in their monitoring of social networking sites. Again, we earned these victories for New Yorkers by joining forces and by tackling these challenges head-on. And this is how we will resolve the issues facing us now. Given the nature of Albany politics and the journey that is ahead of us, I am reminded of something the American scholar William Arthur Ward once suggested. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The realist adjusts the sails. At this crucial juncture in our history, let us, the leaders of our New York, adjust the sails together and set our great state on a course toward hope, prosperity, and the promise of better days. Thank you, and best wishes to you, Governor, and the new team.
Thank you very much, Speaker Silver. Now, please once again welcome to the podium the Senate Majority Leader and President Pro Tem, the Honorable Dean Skelos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, and on behalf of the entire Senate, where you will be presiding, we wish you the best of luck and congratulations on your election. I want to also congratulate our new governor, Cuomo, on what will be his first State of the State speech, and to thank him for the invitation to speak to you today along with Speaker Silver. This invitation gives great honor through me to our Senate chamber, and we thank you for that. And I should also say that my wife Gail, son Adam, and father of 90 years old are also pretty thrilled about it too. And I congratulate, and let me congratulate all of the members of the Senate and the Assembly, whether you've been re-elected or elected for the first time, and look forward to working with all of you for the upcoming year. And I want to, of course, congratulate Controller DiNapoli and our new Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, and also welcome the members of the Court of Appeals. Thank you very much for being here. After listening to Governor Cuomo's inaugural speech, I anticipate that his State of the State address is going to be a realistic and tough message of cuts, restraint, and sacrifice. But it's a message that everyone needs to hear, because the end result of our efforts will be a new hope that we can turn New York around and restore the people's faith in those elected to serve them. The fiscal crisis we faced is an opportunity for dramatic action to change the way New York has budgeted in the past and actually reduce spending and taxes. We simply cannot fail to achieve these goals, because the future of our state and the economic security of every New Yorker depends upon it. The taxpayers don't want more spending or more government. They want more jobs, more individual choices, more economic security, and more opportunities for their children to have a career. To achieve these, we must make government work better and cost less, and it must work for the best interest of every region of the state. Our record proves that Senate Republicans know what it will take to accomplish the challenges we face today. We have already worked to reduce spending in our own conference. Senate Republicans spent $4 million under our own budget last year. We passed a state spending cap with bipartisan support in 2008. If we enact a spending cap now, it would force such significant reduction in spending that the deficit would be completely eliminated. We passed a strict property tax cap and mandate relief to help ease the property tax burden of homeowners. We used public conference committees and an open budget process to pass a balanced budget on time. We need to do that again. As we look to reduce spending, we must look first at the most expensive Medicaid program in the country. Senate Republicans, under the leadership of Senator Hannan, made sweeping recommendations to reduce and reform Medicaid. If we continue to spend $1 billion every week on Medicaid, the state and every county will go bankrupt and property taxes will continue to skyrocket. Even after enacting a local cap on Medicaid, some counties spend 100% of the revenue from property taxes on Medicaid. That's just not sustainable, and we have to reform the system before it breaks the backs of local property taxpayers. We must remember that there is no government program as important as a private sector job. New York must stop pouring sand in the engine of our economy with new taxes, fees, and mandates on businesses. The state cannot continue to be an obstacle to job creation. We must be a partner in prosperity. Government can do that by empowering all businesses, from the small family-owned business to big companies. We must give them the tools they need to succeed and then get out of the way. Senate Republicans proposed direct tax incentives for every new job created. The same basic idea was enacted at the federal level and in many other states, but not in New York. Tax credits would be a good start, but we have to do more to work to help the private sector put people back to work. We did not always have a partner in our plans to cut spending and taxes and create jobs. But from what I've heard from our new Governor Cuomo and Speaker Silver today, I believe we do. It's going to take a large measure of courage to make the tough decisions that have to be made. We can accomplish a great deal if everyone recognizes the seriousness of our budget problem and is ready to make sacrifices, instead of spreading fear and spoiling for a fight. Too often, government believes it has the answers to every problem. The government thinks it knows best how to spend your money, how to run your business, and how to conduct your life. After years of this, it is no wonder people no longer trust the government. Let's face it, when government becomes its own special interest, the taxpayers are in trouble. So many New Yorkers have served their country, and too many fought and died to protect our freedom. We must be vigilant that government gives the people the freedom to succeed. If we accomplish our priorities, less spending, less taxes, less government, and more jobs, if we trust the people and allow them to lead us back into prosperity, then we will have done our jobs, and we will have restored people's faith in government. Senate Republicans are looking forward to working with Governor Cuomo, Speaker Silver, Leader Sampson, Leader Kolb, and all of our colleagues in the legislature to make 2011 session a successful and productive one. Let's seize this opportunity. Let's seize this opportunity and get to work. God bless you, and God bless this great state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Skelos. Just look around this room. Like the new year, this is a time of change and renewal, and it is both an honor and a privilege to introduce to the podium for his very first State of the State message, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, New York. Oh, it is a better afternoon than that. 2,200 people are here today to talk about their government in a way they never have before. Good afternoon, New York. Okay. First, let me begin by acknowledging a truly extraordinary public servant. He was a great mayor of Rochester. He is going to be, that's Rochester. He is going to be a phenomenal lieutenant governor, Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy. To my colleague, and congratulations to the re-elected controller, Thomas DiNapoli. To our brand new, right out of the box, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. To Majority Leader Dean Skelos. Thank you very much, Dean. Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver. Senate Minority Leader John Sampson. Assembly Minority Leader Brian Kolb. To the judges of our great Court of Appeals, it's an honor to be with you, Chief Judge. And a special thank you to the young people behind me. These are high school students who represent New York's 62 counties. They are the future, and the state that we are talking about preparing today is the state that we will leave them. We hope we do a good job, and we thank them for being with us. Thank you. My friends, I believe this state is at a crossroads, and I believe there are two very different paths that this state may go down. Certain factors are pushing us down one path: the national economic pressure, the costs of state government that we're currently expending, the dysfunction that the state government has been manifesting, and the fact that the people have lost trust in our government. They would dictate this state follow one course. But there's an alternative. When you look at the assets of the state, when you look at the legacy of the state, when you look at the tenacity of our people, and when you look at the quality of our people, you have the very real sense that we can turn this crisis into an opportunity. What is the state of the state? This is a time of crisis for our state, a time when we must transform our government to once again become the progressive capital of the nation and to seize the moment of opportunity that is before us. What we do today, January 5th, 2011, will determine the course of this state for decades to come. For New York, it is time to change, my friends, and that's what today is all about. This convening itself is a metaphor for change. This convening itself says that change is possible in Albany. Believe it or not, and I say amen, because we need change in Albany. This is the first time since Governor Al Smith that the state of the state is not being given in the Capitol. It's the first time that the legislative leaders were asked to participate in the presentation. It's the first time that technology is actually going to be used in the presentation. And it's the first time the most important participants have actually been invited to participate, the people of the state of New York. And we say, welcome, New Yorkers, to being here today because this is your government, and no one is better suited to be here to hear this message than you. Thank you all for coming. The State of the State begins with an honest analysis of the crisis that we face. In government, as in life, you can never solve a problem if you refuse to acknowledge it. The economic recession has taken an especially hard hit on the state of New York. 2009, we had a 26-year high in unemployment. Roughly 800,000 New Yorkers are now unemployed. Hundreds of thousands more are underemployed. We have the worst business tax climate in the nation, period. Our taxes are 66% higher than the national average. Upstate is truly an economic crisis. In real GDP from 2001 to 2006, upstate New York grew about 1.7% per year, while the average in the nation was 2.7%. The costs of pensions are exploding. $1.3 billion in 1998-1999, projected for 2013, $6.2 billion. A 476% increase, and it's only getting worse. The state of New York spends too much money. It is that blunt, and it is that simple. Our spending has far exceeded the rate of inflation. From 1994 to 2009, inflation was about 2.7% per year. Medicaid went up over 5% per year, and education went up over 6% per year. We just can't afford those rates of increase. State spending actually outpaced income growth. State spending increased just under 6%. Personal income growth was only 3.8%. And most damaging, our expenses in this state far exceed revenue. We've been focusing on this year and the deficit this year, which is a very large deficit, about $10 billion. And that is a problem, and it is a major problem. What's worse is it's not just about this year. Next year, the problem goes to $14 billion. The year after, the deficit goes to $17 billion. This is not a one-year problem, my friends. This is a fundamental economic realignment for the state of New York. You look at the chart, you look at the arrows, this is an unsustainable rate of growth, and it has been for a long time. Not only do we spend too much, but we get too little in return. We spend more money on education than any state in the nation, and we're number 34 in terms of results. We spend more money on Medicaid than any state in the nation, and we're number 21 in results. We spend about $1.6 billion per year in economic development, and we're number 50 in terms of results. We're spending more, and government is growing more. We now have over 600 executive branch agencies, and it's not just state government. The proliferation of local government and special districts all across the state, now over 10,500, driving that property tax rate up all across the state. And the large government we have is all too often responsive to the special interests over the people of the state of New York. The proof is in the pudding, and New Yorkers are voting with their feet. 2 million New Yorkers have left the state over the past decade. What does this say? It says we need radical reform, we need a new approach, we need a new perspective, and we need it now. We must use this moment to transform our government. We currently have a government of dysfunction, gridlock, and corruption. We have to transform it to a government of performance, integrity, and pride. It is time that we speak to these issues and actually get results for the people of the state and stop offering rhetorical solutions. And I am going to present the budget in several weeks. But this year's budget discussion is not just about a budget exercise. That's what those numbers are saying. This is a fundamental realignment for this state. You can't make up these kinds of savings over this long a period of time through a budget cutting or trimming exercise. We're going to have to reinvent government. We're going to have to reorganize the agencies. We're going to have to redesign our approach because the old way wasn't working anyway. Let's be honest. We need literally a transformation plan for a new New York. And we have 4 principles that will guide our new government. Number 1, we want a government that pays for performance. No more blank checks. Number 2, we want a government that actually gets results in real time. Number 3, we want a government that puts the people first and not the special interests first. And number 4, we want a government that is an icon for integrity, where New Yorkers can be proud of their government once again. We're going to start by transforming New York's economy, because what made New York the Empire State was not a large government complex. It was a vibrant private sector that was creating great jobs in the state of New York. That's what made us the Empire State once, and that's what's going to make us the Empire State again. When you look at the beautiful state seal, at the heart of the seal, in the middle of the shield, are 2 ships on the Hudson River. Those 2 ships were put there when the seal was designed to symbolize intracoastal and international commerce, that at the heart of this state is business. And we have to relearn the lesson our founders knew, and we have to put up a sign that says New York is open for business. We get it, and this is going to be a business-friendly state. We're going to establish economic regional councils, 10 economic regional councils all across the state. They're going to be chaired by Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy. These will be public-private sector partnerships, the focus of which is to create jobs, jobs, jobs in those regions. It starts with the premise that there is no top-down template to create jobs. You have different regions in this state with different assets and different abilities, and these plans are going to have to come from the bottom up, and let's empower the local communities to plan their future and help themselves. Higher education will be the key economic driver. We look to partner with our great SUNY system, especially across upstate New York, in making this a reality. They will provide both intergovernmental and intragovernmental coordination and be one-stop shops. The state government, county government, local government will all be on one board, and all the state agencies will be on that one board. If you need to get something done in that region, it's a one-stop shop, and the government will actually cooperate with each other rather than conflict with each other. These councils will have 2 main functions. First, they will coordinate all the existing economic development money that goes into that region, primarily through ESDC. But second, they will be able to come up with job development plans and then compete against the other councils to compete for up to $200 million in funding. Competition works. Let them come up with their best plans, compete against the other regions, and we will fund the most creative plans. Next, we are going to have to confront the tax situation in our state. The property taxes in New York are killing New Yorkers. 13 of the 16 highest tax counties are in New York when assessed by home value. In absolute dollars, Westchester County, the highest property taxes in the United States of America. Nassau County, the second highest property taxes in the United States of America. It has to end. It has to end this year. We have to hold the line on taxes for now and reduce taxes in the future. New York has no future as the tax capital of the nation. Our young people will not stay. Our businesses will not come. This has to change. Put it simply, the people of this state simply cannot afford to pay any more taxes, period. I now would like to introduce you to Ms. Geraldine Sullivan. Ms. Geraldine Sullivan is a resident of Monroe County. She is 81 years young. She's been retired after 28 years at Bausch & Lomb. Geraldine lives alone on Social Security and owns her own home. Her home value, property value, has gone down, and her taxes have gone up. Geraldine could no longer afford to make ends meet. What did Geraldine do? So at 81 years old, she went back to work as a lunch monitor at the local high school just to be able to stay in her home and just to be able to stay in the state of New York. Geraldine, we understand your problems. Help is on the way. We will pass a property tax cap, Geraldine, once and for all. And Geraldine, we applaud your spirit and your strength and your tenacity. Let's give Geraldine a big New York round of applause. We must transform our state government. The last time the state government was reorganized was 1927 under Governor Al Smith. 1938, a reform was passed, the constitutional amendment, that said there could only be 20 executive departments. 20. So what has happened since then? Well, we couldn't create any more departments. But the law didn't say anything about creating councils, advisory panels, working groups, facilities, offices, task force, institutes, boards, and committees. So, what do we now have? The Department of Health, only one department in compliance with the law. However, there are 87 other organizations that have been added to the Department of Health. 46 councils, 6 committees, 17 boards, 6 institutes, 2 task forces, 5 facilities. It's time to organize the government, make it professional, make it efficient, make it effective. To undergo a comprehensive review, let's eliminate, transfer, and consolidate the funds. I propose setting up SAGE, a Spending and Government Efficiency Commission. It would be styled like a Berger Commission, where the commission would come up with a reorganization report that is submitted to the legislature, and the legislature has 30 days to reject it, otherwise it's passed. The charge to the commission would be operational improvements, metrics and targets, a reorganization plan due in 6 months, and it would consist of private sector experts who could come in and advise us on how to do it and incorporate members of the legislature. We need to transform our budget. We have to start with an emergency financial plan to stabilize our finances. We need to hold the line, and we need to institute a wage freeze in the state of New York. We need to hold the line on taxes. We need a state spending cap, and we need to close this $10 billion gap without any borrowing. We need to transform the budget process that we use in the state. The legislature is very familiar with the budget process. And we need to transform this process from partisan political theater, which is what it is today, to productive debate and compromise. Right now, the budget process is like ships passing in the night. Hold on a second. Bring those ships back. I think I recognized someone. Is that? Zoom in on that man on that battleship. Yes, it is. Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos. And look, it's Commander Sheldon Silver. Oh, and there I am. And here are the special interest groups within. You notice, Dean, how all the missiles from the special interest groups went into my battleship. I would humbly suggest, as the new governor, that maybe, just maybe, we try doing it a different way this year. What do you say? We need to try a different approach. And think of it this way. There are basically 3 flashpoints when it comes to the budget. It's the education funding, Medicaid, and state and local mandates. We want to try a new approach. Let's start with the Medicaid program. The state of Wisconsin actually used an interesting model. The governor had announced across-the-board cuts on the Medicaid program. The industry said that they couldn't live with the cuts. And what Wisconsin did was basically brought everyone in. It was a hybrid alternative dispute resolution meets binding arbitration process. And it actually worked fairly well in Wisconsin. The industry came in, they worked with the government, they accepted the budget target, and then redesigned the program to meet those targets. Remember, this is not going to be a budget cutting or trimming exercise. We need to redesign the Medicaid program. I can also tell you this. As the Attorney General, I audited the Medicaid program for 4 years. Even without this budget problem, the Medicaid program needs a desperate overhaul. It is dysfunctional on many, many levels. So this process has to be done anyway. Our suggestion is to take a crisis management approach and put together a Medicaid redesign team. The Medicaid redesign team will start on January 7th. It will commit to reinventing in time for the April 1st deadline. It will assume the governor's budget target for the Medicaid cut. And the exercise will be to find alternative ways to reach that cut. If we institute a cut in the normal budget process, it's basically through reducing the reimbursement rate. Let's see if we can't actually find efficiencies in the program so we actually provide a better service for less money. The committee will include legislative, executive, and the stakeholders. Dennis Rivera from SEIU, George Gresham from 1199, Mike Dowling from LIJ, Ken Rasky, Dan Sisto, members of the legislature have agreed to participate in this process. We also have Jason Helgerson, who's the former Medicaid director who did this in Wisconsin, who's responsible for designing the exercise. We have seduced him to come join us in the state of New York, which was not a difficult sell, obviously. And Jim Introne, who is a great veteran of state government, and has done extraordinary work in healthcare. We've asked to come back. They're with us today. Let's welcome Jason and Jim. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard, and welcome back, Jim. We'll use the same approach when it comes to mandate relief, putting together a group that will start January 7th and will commit to have actions by the April 1 deadline, and will propose eliminating any unnecessary state mandates. Again, we'll include all our partners, legislative, executive, and stakeholders, labor groups, and that group will be run by Larry Schwartz, who's now senior advisor to me, but many of you worked with him when he was secretary to Governor Patterson. He's done extraordinary work, and he'll be excellent heading up this group. Thank you very much, Larry Schwartz. When it comes to education funding, as I mentioned earlier, we're number 1 in spending, we're number 34 in terms of results. That has to change. The current education funding goes out by formula grants, meaning there are no performance incentives in the grant process. A school district gets their numerical formula, and that's what they're going to get. Whether they do a good job, a bad job, it doesn't matter. They get the same level of funding every year. The federal government is actually more innovative in this area. They're doing it now in the area of education, where they run competitions. And, for example, when they fund the state government, if the state government wants to qualify for the federal money, they have to win the competition. We know in New York how effective those competitions were in making the state government actually move and pass a piece of legislation authorizing charter schools so we could qualify for the race to the top money. Competition works. When I was in the federal government 10 years ago, we moved from block grants to competitive grants. Everything was performance grants, because when you just give people cash with no results, you take the incentives out of the system. Our suggestion is, when it comes to education, have 2 competitive funds that reward performance. One is a school performance fund, which would have a $250 million competition fund for districts that increase performance in the classroom. For example, improving grades of historically underperforming children. If there is a school district that does stellar work, let them compete, let them be rewarded, and let them be emulated. We would have a second competition for administrative efficiency, a $250 million competition for districts that can find administrative savings through efficiencies, shared services, etc. Run those 2 competitions and actually incentivize performance and change the behavior through the funding mechanism. For those of you who are skeptical about performance and the ability to turn around a school, let me introduce Brian Rosenblum. Brian is now the principal of the Chelsea Technical Career High School in Manhattan. Brian has been there for 2 years, and he's already made a difference. In that time, student attendance has gone from 73% to 85%, and listen to this, the pass rate on the Regents went from 31% to 89%. That performance is what we want to incentivize. That performance is what we want to model. And that performance is what we want to applaud. Congratulations, Principal. Thank you for being with us today. I would also propose a consolidation bonus. We've been talking about consolidating local governments for a long period of time, and we're seeing some progress. I think if we added financial incentives to the governments that actually consolidate, you would see an acceleration in the consolidation process. and have a bonus fund for local governments that consolidate, merge, or share services, with 50% of the bonus money going to direct property taxpayer relief for the people of that government. My friends, we have to transform the ethical environment, and we have to clean up Albany. We all have seen the headlines, headline after headline, month after month, year after year, with no change. Every time there's another headline, there's another cut on the body politic, and a little more trust has bled out. And this has gone on and on and on. I'm familiar with the situation because many of the cases that were in the headlines I was involved in. Sometimes, even in Albany, there is a black and white issue. And this issue is black and white. There is no gray. The people of this state have lost trust in state government. This government has lost credibility with the people of the state. It is time to pass ethics reform, and it is time to pass ethics reform now. We will propose a Clean Up Albany plan with real reform. This is not going to be a situation where the people of this state will have suffered for years and lost trust, and now we're going to give them a watered-down or half-baked ethics reform bill. They're going to have real ethics reform. We're going to end pay-to-play. We're going to have full disclosure of outside income. We're going to have an independent monitor. We're going to listen to Ed Koch's warnings, Mayor Ed Koch, who's been going all over the state, and we applaud him for it, talking about independent redistricting. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. And we need public financing of campaigns. We must also, at the same time, once again become the progressive capital of the nation. Yes, we must deal with these fiscal realities, and they are difficult, and they will be time-consuming. But at the same time, we also have to continue to achieve social progress that made this state famous. You should applaud. I spent 4 years fighting Wall Street corruption, and I saw thousands and thousands of consumers victimized by the Wall Street corruption. And the question was, where was Washington? Where was Washington? Where was Washington? Where were all the federal regulators? Where was the SEC and OFHEO, that whole alphabet soup of federal regulators? Where are they? It was a good question. There was another question. Where was Albany? Where was our banking department? Where was our insurance department? Where was our consumer protection agency? And yes, I believe Washington was primarily responsible, but I also believe New York could have done a better job, frankly. I believe our current organization is not effective because it is not organized the way Wall Street works anymore. These divisions of insurance and banking and consumer protection don't exist in the marketplace. And much of the activity is falling between the cracks of our regulatory entities. We can have a win-win. We can consolidate them into a Department of Financial Regulation that better protects the consumer, and the consolidation will save the taxpayer money by reducing the cost of 3 separate organizations. We've been talking about green jobs, and I believe New York has a great future in green jobs. We propose a $100 million competitive grant program that will go to local public-private sector partnerships that come up with the best plans to create green jobs, reduce pollution, and further environmental justice. Let the private marketplace come in. Let them work with the local governments and the local community groups to come up with the best plans. Let's reward performance. Let's incentivize performance. Let competition run, and let us fund the best. That's the Green Jobs proposal. We believe in economic opportunity for all New Yorkers. The minority and women-owned business enterprise endeavor is a good one. It has a current goal of 10% of state business. I want to double that goal to 20% of state business. For those of us who are old enough to remember Willowbrook, it brings back very bad memories. When we think about our current juvenile justice facilities, I believe there are echoes of what we dealt with in Willowbrook. You have juvenile justice facilities today where we have young people who are incarcerated in these state programs, who are receiving help, assistance, program, treatment that has already been proven to be ineffective. Recidivism rate in the 90th percentile. The cost to the taxpayer is exorbitant. For one child, over $200,000 per year. The reason we continue to keep these children in these programs that aren't serving them, but are bilking the taxpayers, is because we don't want to lose the state jobs that we would lose if we closed the facility. I understand the importance of keeping jobs. I understand the importance of keeping jobs, especially in upstate New York. I also understand that that does not justify the burden on the taxpayer and the violation of civil rights of the young person who is in a program that they don't need, where they're not being treated hundreds of miles from their home just to save state jobs. An incarceration program is not an employment program. If people need jobs, let's get people jobs. Don't put other people in prison to give some people jobs. Don't put other people in juvenile justice facilities to give some people jobs. That's not what this state is all about, and that has to end this session. We believe in justice for all. Well, then let's pass marriage equality this year once and for all. We're going to propose a program called the Urban Green Markets Program, which will be a win-win. We're going to set up green markets in urban areas all across the state to get good food to inner-city communities, and these markets will be a host for the New York agricultural products. Last point, we must seize this moment of opportunity. New York is not alone in this situation. As a matter of fact, there are 8 states with fiscal conditions that are worse than New York. This is going to be a time of national transition. This is really an economic recalibration for states all across the nation. And that's what's really happening. As the economy is retrenched, states now have to recalibrate. There have been other times in our history where there have been transition periods, the agricultural transition, the industrial transition, high-tech transitions. In all those transitions, New York led the way, and New York came out first. Why? Because we were faster, we were more facile, we were more sophisticated, and we won in the transition. We can win in the transition again. And we can make we can make January 5th, 2011, the day that we seize the opportunity and the state of New York strikes back. I want to leave you with one personal point, if I may, as the new governor. My colleagues in the legislature, at one point in my life, I went and joined the Clinton administration. I was a lifelong New Yorker, and Bill Clinton took office, and I had the opportunity to join the federal government, and I did. And it was a good experience. I needed it. I was one of those people who thought the New Yorker cartoon was the accurate depiction, that the West Coast was really New Jersey. You know, I was a real New Yorker. So I went down at the beginning of the Clinton administration, Assistant Secretary at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and then I became a member of President Bill Clinton's cabinet. And it was a fascinating experience, and I got to work literally in every state in the nation. Many times when you're in the president's cabinet, your main utility is the president can't make an event. They scramble for a surrogate, and they send someone from the cabinet to be a surrogate. That was actually very tough duty, by the way. Can you imagine having to go out to Kansas to substitute for President Bill Clinton and get before a group that was expecting to see the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, and instead they get the HUD Secretary, Andrew Cuomo. But it was a learning experience for me. And literally every state, and I would be talking about every topic, and almost invariably, somehow they would figure out that I was from New York. I'm not really sure how, because I never told them, but they would figure out I was from New York, and at the end of the event, they would come up to me and almost without exception, whatever the topic, they would say, "What are you doing about this in New York?" It could be health care, it could be immigration, it could be taxation. "What do you do in New York?" And their eyes would be open wide. "What do you do about this in New York?" Why? Because we are New York. And because our history, our legacy was, we took these difficult problems and we solved them first. And the rest of the nation learned from us. The other state governments looked to New York and they learned from us. I was running HUD, the Housing Economic Development. Most of the federal programs were modeled on state programs. Why? Because the New York government was the best. We were the most sophisticated, the most complex. The problems developed here first. We resolved them here first. We had the most caliber in our government. We were just the best, and we were the model for the nation. That's the history and the legacy of New York. This has been an aberration, this recent past, the dysfunction of Albany, the gridlock of Albany, the corruption of Albany. This is not the true story of the New York State Legislature. It's not who we are. It's not what we do. It's not why we're here. The New York State Legislature is the best legislature historically in the nation. The most talented people. That's who we are. That is who we are. And that's who we can be again. When I hear your leaders speaking about cooperation and a positive vision and change and doing things differently, I am so excited. Because the people of this state desperately, desperately need it. They need the government to work in a way they haven't needed the government to work in 20 years. They've seen the ugly. They've seen the gridlock. They've seen the corruption. Let them see how beautiful the government can be when it cooperates and it's enlightened and it's functioning and it's performing and it's putting the people above the special interests. Let this legislature be the legislature that stands up and says, yes, we're Democrats, but we're New Yorkers first. Yes, we're Republicans, but we're New Yorkers first. Yes, we're from downstate, but we're New Yorkers first. Yes, we're from upstate, but we're New Yorkers first, and that matters most. And we're here as New Yorkers, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as independents. We're here as New Yorkers to serve the people of the state of New York and help this state through this crisis. Let this 234th legislature stand up and write a new page in the history book of New York State government. Let this 234th legislature solve these problems at a time of crisis and bring this state to a place that it's never been. We're not just going to build back. We're going to build back bigger, stronger than ever before. That's what we're going to do together. Thank you and God bless you.